Welcome to Free Range. Sean Bond is skilled at accessing the user manual for DNA technology of the body to track issues back to the point of origin in order to resolve any problem happening to the body. It may also be accessed by organic spiritual technology within each individual. Sean assists in creating operating systems to help individuals manifest dormant abilities that unlock their psychic potential and upgrade the body's energy systems. Everyone embodies spiritual technology, which encompasses an infinite scope of possibilities, such as connecting the individual with their spiritual entourage, such as their higher selves, the Creator, the Mother Earth's realms, and or other expressions of themselves throughout time and space to resolve issues and exchange wisdom, knowledge, and skill sets. Here is your host, Gail of Gaia, with her guest, Sean Bond.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. This is Gail of Gaia and Free Range. And here we are, we speak about all kinds of things. And I am happy today to have with me Sean Bond. But I'd also like to thank everyone out there who has donated to my channel. I appreciate it very much. I'd also like to ask you if you would please like and share the videos whenever you can, because I am heavily shadow banned, and so my numbers and so on don't reflect what's really happening, and that's intentional. But that's okay, because I'm all about putting out whatever truth I can find as I know it and as it presents itself. So I hope you're with me on that, and I thank you again. And without further ado, I have Sean Bond. Welcome, Sean.
Hello, thank you for having me on. Quite a fun start we have had so far, emotionally. And so, how have you been?
I've been great. Thank you. Thank you for asking that. And we started off the show watching the what was the name of that, Sean?
Kindness Boomerang.
Yeah, the kindness thing. It's on my Facebook page, and it's really worth watching. It will open up your heart and may even make you misty-eyed. But, you know, kindness can be contagious. So that is what basically is portrayed. And I think you would enjoy it. But anyway, onward and upward. Sean, how would you describe spiritual science? I noticed that on your website, psionicleague.com. For all those, I'll put that in our description. But do you have a way of describing that?
Well, thank you for bringing up. That's a great topic. Okay, so I like the concept of the left and the right hemisphere, the concept of intellect and holistic think, and bring them both together for the whole equation of intelligence, and then linking the brain to the heart through that, and then how mind gets us to quantifying the beyond known, and then also, well, that's also known, but like to the perceiver consciousnesses of our species. And science has always been a lovely tool that I have been engaging in since started. I've been passionate about it for a while, getting into theoretical physics and concepts that test the boundaries of our science so that we can form new inventions, technologies, operations, and learn more about existing technologies, like how all our computers and TV and all this is based on silicon chips and crystals and light being able to transfer data and electromagnetic field and us working off these, and then our exploration of the different forms of energy beyond that, being able to make the expression of new technologies, and then finding out that there's a little bit of a suppression on both spirit and science that keep it apart and keep them separate and hating each other, honestly. And it's it doesn't need to happen. Spirit is also wanting to understand what's going on in spirit and awareness of the unseen and more of reality and stuff. It just has a different flavor, and all the different perspectives of the planet can learn from each other if they just come together and talk. And so I've done that within my own mind, and then been able to figure out the different links between them and allow that to express new lines of thought that only benefit our species. There's a lot of hijacked skepticism that likes to go into thinking that it's good not to think about these things, or it's a distraction, and that's like not a case at all. Otherwise, we wouldn't be operating even with electricity. Nikola Tesla, or most of our computer technology and electromagnetics are based on. So, and he was suppressed during that. So I really don't like these scientists that claim they own science. Science as a word describes to know something. So any particular subject matter where somebody goes into it to fully experience, perceive it at all angles, and understand it better than others, I would say is a scientist, or somebody that spectrums at science, because it has so many different compartmentalized aspects to it that people can dedicate their whole lives to. And that as a branching tree of knowing, I support greatly. And like any religion, which is why science spurred up from, is the aspects of religion controlling spirituality, and then them sensing that it's holding back, tying back, binding is what religare means in Latin, in their definition, and it's like a box, and so they're like going out of that to escape that box, but they don't seem to see that part of human consciousness in controlling the minds of others in forms of power in our society, to form boxes around literally every type of thing we can create. So every thing has a negative version of it or a suppression around it, and it's up to us to angle our way out of the gatekeepers and the different compartmentalized thoughts that divide everyone. So there's a fusing of the left and the right hemisphere that goes into spirit and science coming together and talking and discussing what can benefit the advancement of human nature, why we're here, all the different purposes. The questions are endless when you bring them together. And we really need a debate, because the last time the public got a debate, it was a really doled down version. I remember seeing Bill Nye the Science Guy versus this guy that was a creationist that almost nobody agreed with. It was a very compartmentalized faction of creationism, which is not at all even covering the spectrum of spirit. It's first grader spirituality.
That's a good way of putting it.
And also, Bill Nye the Science Guy is not I'm okay with everyone that wants to be a scientist to express themselves as a scientist, but he's an actor more than anything, and his science is sold. Anyone that is paid for their opinions and
their studies frequently can affect the results that they get. So there's a lot of fraud in science, but it's my understanding that there's a good share of fraud in spirituality as well. Some of the new age stuff has been hijacked, as they say.
Yeah, everyone is, and definitely the new age is very hijacked, but that's based on mind control interactions with the Tavistock Institute and Satanism and solipsism and things that get us into a disempowered state, or thinking that none of this matters, or there's no truth, or you can't ever know the mind of God, or like all these limitations. It's like the tells of the red flags are usually limitations, or it's only this way. You can only do this one path, and it's like, well, that doesn't seem to be accurate. But seeing as we're all doing our own thing, and then that allows like the infinite. So yeah, it's free will is the expression of spirituality outside of the box, and then moral codes of the divine masculine, divine feminine, the whole polarity thing in the left and right hemisphere of natural law, which is I see what's around me, and I figure out based on the laws of interaction of everything how things work. And then the law of morals of spirit interaction having to do with, I see myself as all a fractal of what science even goes into as the Big Bang, as a singularity where we all come from. And so then there's that interconnectivity and quantum entanglement of all photons being connected to the same photon that make up all the light splitting that of a hologram, which is just light being able to split infinitely and then make a picture out of it brought up to scale. Mm-hmm. So it's quite a lot that we can go like moral codes. It's if people want to understand natural law, it's like do no harm to others, but take no shit in the masculine and feminine.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you become
see yourself as everyone.
Yeah, doesn't mean you become. What am I trying to think of? A rug to walk on. Just because, and including when there's unconditional love, you can love, but that doesn't mean, you take a beating or anything like that, because that's not love.
And the distractions and the hopium of, because we were talking about the New Age movement, and it's like, well, they definitely have truth in there, because it wouldn't resonate with people at all if they're just saying lies, of course. And it's it's older, like people say New Age, but it's like a lot of this is from mystery schools that came out. The new age things that people are talking about are the people channeling into new information, and some of that's good, but like there's almost zero way to check unless you have somebody else that is getting the information without hearing that the other person got the information and then them syncing up, and then it's like, oh wow, we got the same information. It's like, well, okay, you're definitely tapping into either the collective field, another being, or like all this kind of stuff. But a lot of it ancient mystery school teachings that are around a while, and because there's like a thing where people usually carry on and have survived into the future things that some way or shape or form work for what they need. And so then that like disseminates what continues to work even in like scenarios where it's very hard to do like magic or spirituality practices. And so, and even into that, because there's like people that like, oh, all this stuff is hijacked. Pretty much anything you see can get hijacked. The goal is to unhijack it and learn how it works, then make it a version yourself that's possibly even better, if you can, or like at its pure form, if in like the source already there kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So there's not really so there's like a thing to learn from everyone, and you don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. But I've mostly seen a lot of their fallacies going into trying to program the human consciousness to give up their rights, not aggressive in any way towards infringement and tyranny, as well as meditating your problems away, or condoning evil, and or thinking evil doesn't quite exist in any form. It is expressible and is definable in action. It's not a thing that somebody is made since birth. It is defined by action, but it is all emanating from oneness, which is, I know that's what people are trying to get from, which is it's still love, but it's still, a lot of it's just like trying to is like passed down to allow like the dark occultists that are trying to infiltrate like different belief systems in a war around the planet, and get them to allow them to exist longer and be a parasite, essentially. And
So we're in a spiritual war right now, or conscious, or war on consciousness, I guess, however you choose to look at it. And well, we could go into some of the things that are going on, but I don't know if I want to. But I one of the things back on the New Age movement is that I've noticed with a number of people, they don't want to, everything's not all love and light. I mean, we've got darkness that we're trying to shine the light on, and it doesn't mean that we ignore it or pretend it doesn't exist.
That's a big one, right?
That's what I see a lot of people doing. It's like, oh, I don't want to hear about that. I don't, that's dark. I don't want to know. But that's not beneficial. I mean, we've got to shine the light on the darkness. It needs to be exposed in order to transmute it. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah. And it's like coming down to tools. What do you have for what you're dealing with? Most of the community will like go into love and light. Love can solve everything. I agree. You can pretty much solve everything. It doesn't mean love doesn't get challenged. It's constantly getting challenged to grow even stronger, which makes us have to form new things with it in greater capacity and reach into a far deeper depth. Mm-hmm. But in order to do that, we are constantly, what a lot of people don't talk about is when the waves come up, like usually like overwhelm or emotions, or like if you get exhausted, or all the different aspects of the shadow that we talk about, which is like, oh, we're going up and we're going down, and this propels something to go even faster than it would normally do, which is interesting. And so as we don't ignore the shadow and we talk about it and give it what it needs, more people are able to get out of those slums faster and launch up into their heavenly aspect of being. So like, keep teaching what you're doing, people. It's lovely. It's like everything is a teacher, every part of yourself, every event, every emotion. Most people's emotions, what they feel, even if it's empathic and external, you'll have an internal reflection inside you that is deeper into what is needed to be changed in order to have it so that if you imagine a scenario where you're completely empathically stabilized, balanced, and in love all the time, and you can just dance out in the world, and people's crap doesn't impact you, like in a way where you're resilient in love, mm-hmm. and in great love power, then that takes tests similar to an immune system and the practice of with love and light. Defense capabilities, and you can make love weapons. You can make giant cannons of love that just blast things and like bring them to a come to Jesus moment. Also, like the bigger darknesses, if you're facing those things, that's usually where if you're talking to somebody that was like more into the understanding of why darkness is important, it's like, oh, that's why you need darkness, to fight other darkness. Because like, what is a love and light person or a Christian do when somebody's getting possessed? They can do it with love, but a lot of the lower level of spirituality religions will usually call upon somebody else to help them, which is fine. And if you need that, and you'll learn from it in the process, and you'll learn from that teacher to grow to eventually, if you are doing it right, to where you can do it by yourself. It's mostly like getting it somewhere else, and getting it out of the vessel, maybe to another vessel, or transporting it to a place that's supposed to be, or bring it huge amounts of love and truth and understanding. Though I've seen things that, despite all that, they'll still remain attached. So like, it will do some things, but like, and also in the time people are, while they're healing themselves, they're healing a bunch of things that are entangled with them. So that's great. But like, balance of both, so that if something, despite you shining a whole bunch of love at them, they still want to remain attached because they value what you have so much, or I don't know, there's like obsession too, because like what do you do if somebody's obsessed with you, if you got stalkers and stuff as an example, do you just keep shining love at them? Is that going to make them go away? or so like the force to where you say no, my boundaries, and do what you have to stop that. And if it is a big blast of love, then great, that's still love canon. And
That's fascinating. Oh, you just froze. Are you still there, Sean? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. This is Gail of Gaia, and this is Free Range. And this is a continuation of Sean and I, because we were cut off by the Wi-Fi in the internet the other time. So we're gonna kind of finish up a little bit. We were talking basically about spirit science and so on. And this is Sean Bond, who I don't know if I said that right away, and he's here to share his knowledge about other aspects of the Psionic League, which he has created. And he talks about things like entity removal, DNA reading, Akashic record readings, and psychic energy, and all those different kinds of things. So what do you think about all these things that's going on the planet right now? I mean, it's affecting the energy in the collective, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of are like a macro map web of everything that exists. And are you able to hear me right now? Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're okay.
So as above, so below, within, without. It's all like cause and effect. We can have a greater angle at effect on the rest of the world, but there is a deep core within the collective that is affected and is affecting things. What have you been experiencing of late? Lots. Calling for action from me as well as others around the planet, at least that I can surmise, for Earth calling to people and then it coming up in their sense capacity.
Being called like a calling to duty, more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's time to stand up. It is. It's definitely time to praying. We got to get past praying. And it's funny because, well, it wasn't funny, but General Flynn came out and said that it's time for action. Prayers aren't enough. And I agree with him. And people have to quit sitting back and waiting for someone else to do it for them. We've kind of gotten into that bad habit.
And you left where you got back into exactly where we were previously, which is a big part of getting past the dogmas of the New Age movement, which are to have us sit on our thumbs, or at least not do action orientation, which is the divine masculine principle of take no shit and don't let things incur. There are psychopaths, there are parasites in the world, there is evil, it's definable, but it is still connected to all oneness. It is forgotten that we are it, and is still harming us, and it's in a state of sickness and projecting its pain at others until something in a cry out for help, though it's not going to say that. Yeah. So how we can't get the one of the big layers in the jumps in levels of spirituality, and then like the fusing of that into science, and which is science is to know something. So know computers, technology, programming, nature, awareness of things, all that will go into. So a science of spirit into something that all the categories of things that work because of the different degree of scientific evaluation that is required to knowing an aspect of things that have to do with subtle energy, unseen, as well as feeling, perception, light, awareness, experience. And it's not easy to just do a double-blind study. You can't even do most of the things in the world in double-blind study. It requires like multiple people, and like
It's not realistic.
yeah, it's not realistic exactly. And still, you can do that. It's just they don't. It's more projected as a gauntlet for people claiming that scientism, the expert, the mind control, the religion of science, the dogmatic, corporate hijacked, paid for, bought and sold science is putting in front of people to make it seem like, oh, if you don't have this, you're not experts, or if you don't get research grants or tenures, which is the whole prospect of my opinion to why they are bought and paid for, because they can't be that unless they're going along with a large amount of stuff that is
Nefarious, to say the least.
yeah, it's not really backed, and they are literally going to tell you, oh, don't worry about checking the data, we got you. And then a lot of it's based on faith. So whether they like to say that or not, it's still faith.
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned when I have to give school credit for this, but is that studies can show whatever they want to show you, and you always have to look at who funded the study, and what their agenda might be, as well as the methodology, because both of those can interplay and give you a false positive of what you're looking for. And we've seen so much of that. I mean, I was watching that kind of thing when GMOs came around, and that's a whole nother ball game. And now this thing with hydroxychloroquine is just absolutely appalling that it's available over the counter in other countries, and Americans are here dying, and we have FDA and CDC and places like that are keeping it from people and from physicians for even being able to prescribe it. It's unheard of. So that's darkness right there. And the energy feels very chaotic to me today.
Yeah, oh yeah, this is like wars going on of big predators that are coming out of the woodwork. It's like a big challenge, and like time speed. So like things are like racing back and forth, and it's actually like in my macro sense, it's good because both sides are like putting a higher amount of effort, which makes the whole timeline speed up because it's trying to gain resilience for everything. Earth is like this, it's doing this thing where she has this deep oracle sense of what she needs in the future to have everyone survive and continue in the best timeline. And in order to do that, we need to become really resilient. We need to become like very strong base foundational chakra. The roots are to where we can't get uprooted easily from the reality and go into chaos. Yeah, science. There needs to be a thing where people understand that they have a perspective and they have a belief and awareness and a motivation, and they have to play musical chairs with their desire, their motivation having to do with science in the thing they're trying to prove. Like the likelihood of a person going into science and investigating and finding conclusions and evidence for something that they're trying to prove is really high because they want it to exist and they're willing to fudge the numbers to make that happen. That'll happen in a lot of things. There's been things disclosed that were like put out, school published paper doctorates, all kinds of dissertations and other stuff that, like, I remember seeing an interview with people that on the Joe Rogan podcast that went into, like, oh, we got into this position where we started writing papers for university, and they felt like playing a joke on them by writing outrageous things that they knew the woke, the false woke culture of the media narrative, which people call leftist, though I don't really think that's these right and left paradigms are accurate at all, because it's kind of like what the public is and then what the establishment pretends to be.
Yeah.
But there's like studies where they would talk about how like rape culture and things that the woke media would like to hear. And they did almost no evidence gathering, and they wrote it all out of their ass, and they were saying that they were doing that as a joke, and they were calling the research papers things like, oh, the joke's on you, and all these things that like subtle hints, and they published them, and they made them like they didn't do any research on them. They publish what they agree with on principle. They don't need the evidence. And then when they retracted that, when they told them that it was a joke, they retracted it. They only got scolded a little bit, but barely anyone said anything. And it's just how much of our culture is based on what people want to be true. Is like, that's not really science. That's like, again, religion. So we have to find this musical chair balance situation of not giving a crap what the answer is in a reality of objective, shareable data of what is real, and that we don't care what it is. Well, we care, but we don't give a crap what it is. We want to have truth, ultimately.
Ultimately, yes, truth. People are begging for the truth. I hear people talk
about science basis and
yeah.
not needing it to be something. But too much of so-called scientists do that exactly. So I don't see almost any of them as experts, and the ones that I do see as experts don't get any coverage on mainstream media, which is interesting. And they keep using the same people over again. It starts getting to be a clown show, and then you investigate them, and they're quite selloutish, which is why they're on the media. They sell out humanity for things that they're told are good for it. They probably don't even know because they're in a bubble. But if they like I saw Neil deGrasse Tyson going into like, oh, support GMOs, and they said all this talking head crap about how they're good, and nothing to do with like how Monsanto is this evil corporation that is doing things to our food that is horrible if anyone even knew about it. But
oh my God, yes, I researched and looked into that substantially, and I will be having a guest on Stephanie Sinoff, and she is an expert on glyphosate and can address those issues very much. One of the things that I found in that whole scenario was that you had these three-piece suit guys all in these fancy brochures and able, because they got big money, able to sell this to people, and it's very bad for them. And when you see the health statistics since it was introduced, which I'm sure Stephanie will share, you can see how bad it is for you.
Illness and treatment of that illness.
Rates of obesity, rates of diabetes type 2, I mean, they have just escalated. But then we have all kinds of other pollution that we're exposed to. All this, I think it affects our spirituality to a certain extent too, because it's hard to be clear-headed. Would you agree with that, or?
Oh yeah. Well, like, I had to stop most of it. You go slowly because it's like a little overwhelming, and like, we're resilient and we're supposed to be resilient, which is why a lot of this is allowed in the first place. Besides Earth, like, coming up out of a coma and like trying to throw off the parasites, like, and what she's oriented in seeing, what's the biggest thing that she has to focus on any given time, because like every day she's like healing a galaxy worth of stuff, and then compressing problems down, and we're not the only problem she has to worry about at all. So she allows things that would ultimately test our evolution in make or break moments, until it gets to a point where it's not serving us anymore. So if we want to become resilient spiritually very fast, then that would bring her to like, because there's like if you were to arrange it, there'd be like, okay, it's allowed, and then after a certain point of our evolution, it's like, oh no, it's not allowed anymore, and then it starts fading out of reality because it doesn't have authority to continue. Same thing with the 5G stuff. It's like a slow kill, like with the frog in the boiling pot. It's if you turn it up slowly, then the frog won't notice. Otherwise, it will jump out. And then them doing that, because a lot of it's about psychopaths in power that aren't empathetic towards anyone and think of us as slaves and sheep and chattel, and are their farm, and then the higher dimensional beings that are actually farming the DNA for a greater skin suit technology.
And then they're eugenicists as well.
Yeah, and they want like a purist lineage. They don't want to just kill everything off, and that's honestly stupid. The people that plan to like, oh, let's build up out of the ashes, never in a point in existence has that been an accurate thing to do, because it takes a long time to rebuild a civilization. So it's like a big boom that they think it's not going to be nothing. But yeah, so depopulation is the whole thing. Agenda 21 and 30, all the stuff into slowly through toxins and things that they don't have to say, oh, we're not murdering you guys, to lessen the population if they can. And our psionics, mine as well, has been going towards increasing our ability to survive, as well as, because like, even if I mean, their goals are that because of their tunnel vision, but the things that are influencing them in the dark spectrum are like, okay, you're allowed to dominate and control based on the aspect of you have to get the DNA population to a certain level, and there's like this light and this dark that's like bringing us there. Not saying that they're doing it in any good way or gentle at all, and then we can even avoid their crap that they send out if we all work on it specifically. And as an individual level, we can become immune to pretty much anything we want, including every frequency that's emitted electromagnetically or beyond, and even transmute into something that benefits us. At that point of evolution where we're that resilient is the point.
This 5G thing is very disturbing because it's if people would look up the symptoms for radiation poisoning, they would see a lot of similarities with some of the.
I was very happy when I saw people knocking down the towers, and then I saw a lot of propaganda that said, oh, "Don't do these," and then they started calling the worst version of the perception of the conspiracy the conspiracy. It's like, oh yeah, it's these conspiracy theorists think that the 5G towers are causing COVID. My God, the framing of that word and the words in that sentence is, of course, the stupidest thing ever, and that's why people think conspiracy theories having to do with that are stupid. That's not the belief at all in the industry. People that say that are, I don't know.
Many people aren't aware of the fact that particular term, conspiracy theorist, was developed and coined by the CIA back when JFK was killed. So anyone who was not in agreement with the official narrative was called a conspiracy theorist. And if you notice it, they still use it today for anyone they want to discredit. People that are coming out and trying to tell the truth are called conspiracy theorists. And conspiracy facts are not conspiracy theory.
Yeah, and the coincidence theorists and the critical thinking shutdown words of all different types that just keep people from asking questions, or like a big scary term that keeps people from looking at things because they're afraid of being mind controlled or whatever, because they're told it's literally they're told it's infectious, and people have been told that you can catch stupid, which I kind of believe you can, but I don't think in the same way that they're perpetuating it all. Yeah, the more knowledge you get, the more immune you get to mind control. The more boxed in you get, the more you're already in mind control. People need to realize they're already born into it. It's not like you're clear and ready to go and you got to protect yourself from everything. Yeah, it's there. If you just look up the list of conspiracies that have been proven right, it's ridiculously long. So like this needs a whole nother term, but they're gonna keep calling it that because that's their way of control.
Do you see? Do you have psychic abilities as far as future things or anything of that nature? Is that?
Yeah. So I teach people how to do this. So oracle skill sets go into many different senses, and the ability to perceive and the messages going from the higher collective and the accumulation of information having to do with every person as a chess player, their perceived timeline in predictive model, habit pattern, and what their higher self and timeline observing self is going into with points of itself in the moment and projected forward and back. So then that goes into all the different, so forward, all the different potential timelines. Nothing is set in stone completely. It's all potentials floating around. And one can make a predictive model that's very advanced, having to do with information relay, downloads, and constant updating. That like makes a very, very accurate predictive model of things set in stone, which are based on habit patterns and things that people are more oriented, as well as goals and like what they're all driving towards. But time is shifting all the time, of course. The things to look out for are, I mean, there's a lot of things talked about. There's a very good, it's like stuff on the table, so it's not like things, don't take my word completely on it, and I wouldn't even apply dates to it. It's like also hopium stuff. I don't enjoy that very much at all, except like I feel the weight that it lifts off of people's shoulders and getting them to going if they're like suicidal or whatever. So I like them for that idea, but I don't like that they keep people unaware of how time works and like going into it. So
Timelines? Is that what you were saying?
yeah, and I'm feeling a bunch of stuff that doesn't want to talk about something, so I'm going to try to tune right into exactly what it's trying to stop me from doing. Don't do that strategy. Whoever's doing it, if you're listening, really dumb. I'm going to go right for what you're trying to stop me in. Okay, there's a bunch of things, so I'll see if I can go into that. And if you wanted, also, I remember you wanted to talk about RH negative.
So yeah, there was someone who asked me, so I thought I'd ask you. So in the angelic room. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I'd agree it's a good idea for people to amass quite a bit of food or canned goods so that they can keep okay in that scenario if anything were to happen. Essentially, in the culmination of apex predators of control systems fighting each other is what is gearing up. And that can cause drama to the citizens. The biggest thing I'd say is possibly a period of time where the internet, maybe even power is gone for a bit, and like the power went off like yesterday for me, and that's why I'm in office. But yeah, so it's like bringing me to like, oh, what can I do to make my situation better prepared for next time it happens? Because if you're seeing the dark possibly be going down in, or like the apex predators fighting each other for the new world or the old world order kind of concepts, and the different factions of eyes, because it's not at all one background cabal secret society. They all fighting each other. They all want control. Then it's good to prepare for those worst case scenarios. Do what you need to do in immunity, protection, psionics to protect yourself. I'd go into asking your higher self to get on this in like, oh, can you amass a large amount of reality stabilization in like the root area, having to do with safety, energy, like a field of safety that they create and they expand and they cultivate and they make that stronger, including like anything that feels it wants to interact and eventually come into your bubble of reality in the manifestation of the hologram, depending on their rendering of light back and forth between their brain and the size of that and the other consciousnesses. So safety, defense, like the fortresses, the bubble shields, all that. Offense, like some people in the new age movement don't think there's a necessariness to weapons. There's absolutely necessary for weapons. Like Earth has some of the biggest amount of weapons of any planet that I've ever seen. She needs all of them. A lot of them are just bravado. Like where like two countries, if they both have nuclear bombs and they're beating their chest, and neither of them want nuclear war, but it's a deterrent. It stops them from doing things. It's the same thing, deterrent. It's mostly 90% of what people need. And then there's people talking about a possible false or orchestrated alien invasion, and honestly that is a very high likelihood based on all the other options the groups on the table of the round table that get things done around the planet, for usually the negative, but I don't want to say there's also white hats involved, but it's like who's talking together and what in the orchestration and what they get to agree on. And a lot of them don't want to agree, and so they're going into, hey, we might need to orchestrate an invasion, and you already know about this.
Yes.
It is increasing daily, the likelihood of them doing this, and there also a bunch of them are amassing resources. For a while they've been amassing resources to survive no matter what happens in underground bases, as well as breakaway groups in the corporate conglomerates in the solar system. So there's not really much to worry about in invasions of a real nature, or at least one that would last a long time, and it would be local destruction events. So and I'm also getting to say, hey, get away from the cities. The big major cities like New York, Los Angeles. I'm not going to name too many of them. It's honestly going to change. Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe. But like, as long as you're away from the cities and like able to, that thing where if a bear is chasing you, all you got to do is outrun your friend. Not in a negative sense, but like in a kind of a joke way. This isn't actually that funny, but trying to make it a little light. Or the grass, or the plants growing up too fast, and like the ones that grow too fast are usually ones that chop down concept. And because like the whole event is going towards a thing of mass acceptance, so they need to do things in very public places that would get a lot of attention, and then once all eyes are on it, then the narrative can influence the event. And then it's also a way for them to have another attempt to regain control. They're not likely to do it until they're very close to losing their power. It's like one of those cards that they'd play at the last hour kind of thing. It's like their thing, like, you guys need the government and all this. We got to protect you. Then it'll keep their system going, which is why it's more likely they're like influencing how fast it will go out. But the positive is like absolutely going to chess move around that. So they're not going to just have their fake invasion. There's going to be all these other factions that have a say in interacting with it in the overall narrative. But the media is going to be trying to perpetuate and control a lot of it as well.
They seem to be the virus lately.
Right.
If you want to talk about a virus, because we're not getting the truth from them, and that's makes it very difficult for people, because we have so many people that's where they get all their information from.
Yeah. And like if people are like wanting that, like I know a lot of people are like, oh, let's get on with disclosure already. This virus, and this like prepares us for other situations, and then it would even though the mask like and all the things lesson, because that's all stupid and depopulation stuff. It is good to get us into the awareness of, you gotta make your immune system better. We're just not getting expert advice from the news.
No, and
a wake-up call.
Yeah, like people don't realize that putting a mask on is actually hurting their immune system. You're not supposed to breathe carbon dioxide. You're not supposed to be breathing your own gunk that you are meant to expel, and instead of taking it back into your lungs. It's just crazy.
6 feet apart, wearing a mask thing sounds like a satanic ritual.
It is.
But there's a lot they're trying to do all at once, and it's underestimating the dark cultists is never like a thing that pans out well. They're actually pretty intelligent, and they got a looking glass technology. Some of them, so they're able to predict the future at some points in history. I don't know about currently, because I'm also trying to see which ones have them that are abusing them. But,
I heard, I don't know if it's true, but I was under the impression that only the good guys have the looking glass technology anymore.
I heard that too, and I kind of would orient towards that too, but I try not to ever hold my breath, and also,
yeah, really,
I like to be vigilant, but it's a nice little quantum jump reality to be in, if one could look into that. Also, they do steal abilities from oracles and other things that are going on, and they get a lot of information from demons that they summon. But
do a lot of magic and stuff like that people aren't even aware of, don't they? Black magic.
It's very underestimated. It's ridiculous. Before I even go into the advanced amount of darkness that exists in this world, people need to understand what psychopaths are. Research psychopathy. Research how, like, there's like videos on like psychopathic kids and their psychology and like growing up, and then like them stabbing their siblings and just like, I don't know, I just wanted to do it. and they don't have empathy, and they have the part shut down in the brain. If you want to have a good show to watch on this, Dexter is a pretty good show that goes into psychopathy, and he's like a psychopath that was trained by his father, who was a cop, to be a good psychopath and kill other psychopaths, which honestly should be how the world should be, because they're supposed to be very big apex predators that don't have to deal with emotional baggage, even though if a person's bound, that's like them giving up on emotions. And even psychopaths have the ability to be healed and have their emotions turned on again. Absolutely.
Do they have implants?
And I'd honestly love to have take a crack at that, though I'm sure it'd be super dramatic. I am willing to become friends with and come to peace with my greatest enemies for the planet. Yeah, there are even bigger apex predators that have emotions, though. But like most people have barely any emotional intelligence to where they're able to hold up themselves going through the reclaiming of their light and the reclaiming of their dark power. And to reclaim the biggest amount of light, it's not going to let you get to it until you reclaim your greatest darkness, which is why a lot of people let me just reclaim my light. And it's like, oh, good luck. Your higher self will probably give you 20% of your greatest lights if you want to do that.
Basically, now you're talking about your shadow self, correct? And people, part of getting to know yourself, how do you describe that to people? When you go into your heart or go into things about yourself that you know that are dark and accepted or transmuted, or what do you suggest people do?
Pretty much all the power darkness has is root chakra stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're able to heal and resolve all of that to a great resilience, mostly it's fear. The biggest block in the root chakra is fear. So if you get rid of all your fear, the darkness will almost have no power over you. And it's like, and if you're able to shine love while facing, that'll go in hand with it. If you're numbed and confidence is one thing, but there's people that are prideful and they think they can take on anything. Are you feeling love while you're believing that? If not, probably still you're getting something coming in through some back door or something, and that's making a long-term corruption chess move to try to, because that's the chess move of darkness, to slowly change the being, and that's why there needs to be a sine wave going in and back and forth between light and dark. Otherwise they get too zealotous either side, and which separates them, which is also against unity consciousness. Love is the thing it lacks the most. So that's why people should start with light, so that they can get their love power to such an intensity that they can bravely go into their shadow or ego, or the cave of fears in their roots, or whatever they need to do that they're ready for, because I don't recommend people go right towards the darkest version of yourself unless you're ready for it. That your higher self will probably even stop you, because in their perception it would be too much unless you accumulate all the skills to take care of every aspect that comes your way. And so there's a building up process. And your higher self will know that in teaching you, and you will face the darkness that you're ready to, and it will be like a daily thing, where in the roller coaster of emotions. So anytime people are facing that, it's going to try to encompass you, try to change you, bring you into that low frequency, and that's some people and I needed that experience at the beginning to what is this? What can I gain out of this? How to translate? Some of it is hard to even translate. If engulfing you and enmeshing with you, and you're not able to translate anything, and it doesn't seem like there's any benefit to it, then there isn't, and you gain past the wisdom. You can figure out what gold nuggets you can take from the experience, like questions about yourself. Like dark experiences bring a person to realize they have to change or get out of suffering, or something's not quite right, and you gotta shift something. So it brings your attention. Like the same thing with the truths of both. Light to empower you to get you past the big problems, and the dark truths, which are the problems themselves and what you have to face and learn about in order to change that aspect of your reality yourself.
So is that like taking a look at things that you have done in the past that probably if you had them to do over again you would do differently, or recognizing that, or seeing that things that you did were not out of love, they were out of selfishness, or things
all
like that?
In self-defeating habit patterns, behavior, things that are less desirable stuff, undesirable aspects of our nature, unsovereign, the opposite of all the chakras, like going into when we're shut down in fear, we're in shame, or we did something that we don't like. The sacral is creation, and programs and sex and emotions and stuff. It has to do with your block to creating, which is shame, and then will, your block to your will, guilt, and like a bunch of things within that also, because like there's sub stuff like anger and wrath and the deadly sins, and loss and lack consciousness, or lies in the for the truth, illusion, the Maya, what we dogmas that we believe, and things that go into the veils, our lack of knowingness, or ignorance, or because like ignorance is definitely different than the opposite of science, which is nescience, which is not to know something. Which if someone's nescient of something, there's no fault to them at all. They have not had it come into their perception. If a person had something come in their perception and they deny it and they do not learn from it, same thing with that ego, the shadow, all the things that are the teachers we don't like, then that is ignorance, and that is a block to them, and it's a challenge to get them out of it, which is part of the control system that is the cage that we have to get out of, which is in our body, and like getting that impulse control, so we question the impulses and what they do, and if they're in our greater good in pathway.
So,
you want to know about the RH?
Oh yeah, sure. But let's move into that, what you know of. We've heard so many different theories. I don't know what to believe about it, or if it even matters that much. Some people have said a lot of different things, anywhere from being a reptilian to being an angel. So I'm going, okay, whatever.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a combination of all of them, because they're naming aspects of it. Our perception on blood types and DNA is very limited, honestly. It's like, oh, A, B, C, all, there's way more stuff. That's just what they've been able to perceive in, like, oh, if these little parts of the blood cell are shaved off, or they come with them and like interact with it.
Mm-hmm.
And the RH factor, rhesus monkey, the Neanderthals, the Basque people, all going into that in combination. So it's not just like one species. In origin, there's a lot going on with it. There are angels involved in it. The RH negative is such a powerful lineage that it needs its own heaven realm and its own hell realm. Its own heaven realm to protect it and have like, it's a lineage that has to do with infrared magic, like which is like a root red current energy that's very, very permeant in our reality. It's like one of the top energies that's permeating through the entire environment, which is why it's so valuable to have that DNA, because they can just tap into like limitless energy and then use that into things. Yeah, so it has its own heaven realm, so it has angels associated with it based on the groups, the ones that are organizing and influencing the genetic technology to survive and continue, all the different rays of healing and perspective that it needs, and in support in the light side. The hell realm goes into quarantining problems and resolving things out. And like those that have the DNA can like interact with both and utilize, like, oh, if there's a predator, quarantining it down to the the hell realm, and then bringing in the angels from the heaven realm. And then also the association with a lot of beings in their line will have been angels. There also is the association with the combination of the RH negative plus the Holy Grail lineage, which is like the Yahshua, Emmanuel, Jesus, and Mary lineage concept that's branched out a bit in different places, and the royal families combining that together, which the royal families are very much involved in, like trying to own the RH negative. They don't own it. They are currently, there's a big apex predator that is trying to own it, that's leaching into the RH negative's DNA to try to steal everyone's energy. And they have to constantly keep that out and quarantine that if you have the DNA energy. Otherwise, you'll feel drained, or there will be like a chaos tornado of tornado of chaos that will accumulate in a person's life. They yeah, so the royal family's lineages, they collect lineages. They go after really powerful ones, so they don't own it. They're also, people are perceiving that they're involved in reptoid lineages, which honestly is true. But our entire
what kind of lineage? I didn't understand that.
Reptoids. So, like, we get the reptilian brain. Like, we have reptoid DNA of many different types.
Yeah.
We have bird. We have all types of mammal. It's all humans have reptoid DNA. They have more of it because of the specific lineages they've bred for that, and they need like a certain ratio of DNA to allow certain authorities that they perceive to come into the body, like a temporary possession kind of thing. And also, some of the lineage, the members have retained an ability in something that they don't fully have control over, but sometimes have control over when they've accumulated enough energy to shapeshift. I don't think there are that many shape-shifting reptoids in power, of course, and most of the lineage that we see aren't reptoid. They're like a humanoid reptoid and many other things, hybrid, that are being influenced and puppeted from multidimensional beings in many different ways. And I'm not gonna like sugarcoat on that, because the royal family has its own purpose, coming from the German lineage, and Saxe, Gopher, whatever it's called, before it was called Windsor. And yeah, and there's like a thing that with was it Princess Diana and like her goldsmith lineage, and that had some of the Holy Grail, and then that coming in. So that's some of the angel stuff, because that brought in a whole bunch of light forces into the lineage combination, though that's not the first one that combined the two. And then individuals that have it will allow very powerful spirits to come into the lineage, such as angels. I see it in origin. It's kind of got like over 300 different powerful lineages combined together at the current amalgamation. In its origin and its peak authority of power, where the authority of infrared magic comes from, is from the lineage creator, which is some infrared overpowered dragon. And dragons like not the same thing as Draco, which Alpha Draco is the negative reptoid or predominantly negative reptoid species that everyone has.
Dragons and Dracos are not the same.
Not at all. Even in their origin, which they claim with their white winged members of the royals, that they come from dragons, which when I look at that claim, technically they don't really know their own history. They have a mythos because their whole culture is based on the victors writing the history, and it's so much up to propaganda. They think they're the peak of evolution. That's why they stopped evolving. They evolve still, but it mostly has to do with their orientation to feel love. If they feel more love, they start evolving again, and they're mind controlled to think that it's an indicator that they're the peak of it. So they come from a dragon-like looking reptoid. Ooh, getting a bunch of telepathic text messages. What do you want? Okay. They're concerned about what I'm talking. Woo.
You don't like what you're talking about?
A bunch of messages. I'm gonna look at 1 second. Okay, I'm getting a few from a bunch of things all at once. So, mostly from the Infrared dragon. That one is a real dragon. The Draco, not really. My definition of dragon is an elemental programmer of realities, dream weavers, people, beings of a grand authority on a planet, and sometimes they're even the planet itself. They're like, I mean, Earth technically is also a dragon, but she's so many other things. She's not like labeling herself. She has many experiences, so it's the same kind of concept if a dragon's a planet. Something that has grand power in elements, and then it takes the form of what's in our residual image as a reverent species of all 5 elements, possibly even beyond that, because they do that, and they also ferry souls between stars, and sometimes they're stars themselves or celestial dragons, and even ones that are going into big size scale ones. There's been whole wars in our past, mythic age, extinction age. Most of them have gone extinct after went underground and they're in dormancy and think they're the last of their species. It's kind of sad. And also, like, if you're like fossil records, like most bird bones don't survive at all, and if you think that a flying reptile's bones are gonna survive too, except for like teeth and some other things. There are video evidence. I've seen one video. A lot of it's garbage though. When you go looking for dragon evidence, I have seen one video though that when it's like if you look up flying dragon in China, it's like a spike-tailed female, and when I tune back into it, it exists, and it started talking to me and gave me a bunch of very dramatic telepathy, and it was pretty interesting. They don't like being public. It's very dramatic entangling with us, and they have to spend a bunch of hours detaching themselves and a whole bunch of other stuff. A lot of them are angry and pissed off at us for being one of the reasons they've gone extinct.
Yeah, weren't they used to be our protectors, our helpers, or whatever, and then people started killing them or fearing them or whatever?
Both. There's light, dark, and neutral of every species, including them. There's a lot of, especially towards the end, a lot of them got feral and haunted and targeted very strongly, and then they became like man killers and all this kind of stuff, which oriented people to need to hunt them. And then the whole mythos in that. And then how that like can be applied to many aspects of archetypal consciousnesses, which is why people are like, oh no, they didn't exist, it was all in our mind, and we just combined snakes and lions and oh my, whatever. into one form. And this is the perception of science. Even though they've existed in every culture around the planet, in our history, and walls and all this stuff, and come in different forms. It's okay, whatever you want to believe. They will appear to you more in dreams and spirit. They don't need a body. If you want to debate if they still physically exist, go for it. It doesn't matter to me. I've experienced it to the point where I can't believe that they don't exist. It's been so dramatic for me. I can't go back. It wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't be genuine. And I'm not trying to do anything. It doesn't even serve me in any way to tell people about this and get them to believe me. So if you think that I'm making this up, oh, good, go for it. If that's your excuse to stay in your box, do whatever you need to do to stay safe. If you're afraid of this thing, there are dragons to be afraid of. There are big ones. There are like the Bible goes into it mostly in a negative concept. But there are like angelic dragons. There are ones that are like rainbow winged, like hold up our entire reality and program all existence. Our interactive hologram of like the projector screen, the placenta of the void, for our light perception of our hologram, the Da Vinci sphere kind of thing. That is technically an aspect of a dragon or elemental operating system consciousness that interacts with Earth. And is like a Jarvis kind of thing, not in a like I will serve you, but like in a union communion way of like, oh, tell me what you need and I'll get you. And most people don't even interact with that. So do whatever you want to do. And then there's the dragon body and all that stuff. The infrared dragon is very interesting, very powerful. I love it quite a lot. I also have connections to RH negative, and I had to do a bunch of missions for it to get up the technology. So again, it's infrared advanced technology, so you can work with it more. You're able to more influence that layer of reality. It also leads to portal creation, which is one of the like being able to make energetic portals, waygates between places, and then bring in energy, and then infrared usually, and then being able to make constructs for that in all the different layers of reality, astral dream and all that. The reason portal creation that I've been able to see is because if you want to make a portal of anything, it costs a certain amount of energy, and seeing as infrared energy is very permeant, and that is easy and simple for people, and it's a relatively little cost of infrared energy to create a portal compared to the other types of energy you could use. And then so people can just will it into existence, and a lot of time it will work. There are a lot of abusers in this lineage, which is the parasites that people have to protect themselves from, and the energy drain, the energy harvesting. And then how people say that since it's a valuable lineage, a lot of people that have it will be monitored and looked at, and some of them will be like farmed, or if they've gone more sovereign in their lineage and not like owned more by the beings claiming to own humans, then they will be more having positive soul family ET experiences or visitations or mystical experiences. They'll track more going on. They'll be able to see into more realms. A lot of vision stuff will go into it because they can just accumulate a large amount of energy and put it in towards investments of spiritual technology or creations, especially with what they're good at. So with their natural born spirit talent plus their DNA goes to a potent combination. So to answer your question, yes, there's angels involved. There's angels involved in most creations, including in the entourage of the infrared dragon, though I would definitely say it's more of a dragon-oriented DNA lineage that is an accumulation powerhouse of a lot of things, including angels.
Interesting. Very interesting. What about, I would wonder, like right now, I sense that, I've said this before, but the demons are out in full force. And what I mean by that is basically the dark energy. Do these entities attach to people?
Yes, I'm just gonna finish up with what the dragon told me to
Oh, okay.
say, and it's like it also told me to avoid talking about some things. So if you wanted to interact with the dragon, it is able to be a part of your entourage. Do auditing, filtering, managing by your internal source with any being you interact with, or add to your entourage, beings you talk to or interact with or trade. And you can start an engagement in trade and then go through its mystery school. It is looking for powerful beings that are able to help it in its lineage to hold up mantle of responsibility, authority, and abilities, and being able to protect things and then heal more of the lineage, because it's like also held by a bunch of, because our species is still children compared to the other species. So being able to help them get out of places. It's mostly has to do with fighting off the parasites of the that are entangled with the royal family. I wouldn't say it's all royal family. They barely know anything that's going on in the background spiritually. They're so shut down. But they will have a lot of entanglement and things stealing their authority and energy that are messing with people. It's looking currently, so any being that wants to trade for more abilities having to do with infrared with the dragon, it is looking for ways to advance its wholeness equation of completing itself, like through like getting parts back that were stolen, having to do with the lineage and authority. Also, the authority members of the lineage have taken a big hit. Some of them are near a coma, pretty much in a coma, so it needs a lot of healing to wholeness, a lot of truth, so that it can shine that at the beings that are messing with it. It needs a bunch of protection, safety, love, a lot of love. And those that are good at infrared energy that are in the positive sense, or ones that aren't just self-serving. And anything you're really good at, you can really just trade the other being for it if they're wanting to complete that. You can, they'll visit you. You want to be respectful when talking to dragons. You want to treat it as like, oh, this is an amazing being that has done a lot and knows and sees a lot. And at any moment it could kill me, but like it doesn't need to, and it is wanting to be united and friend. So it's definitely a neutral being, I would say, that has expressions both light and dark, because it has to maintain an entire lineage going on. So entity attachment. If people aren't whole, or they're fractured, or if they have a space of lack, then those spaces usually are drawing factors to entities. And if they want to make it so that they have less attachment of different types, because there's different ranges of entity attachments, from very small programming, just superficial interaction, to and then like greater amounts of control and influence, and eventually like something trying to anchor into the body and take it over, or whatever. So people can work on that lack in themselves, and it mostly goes back to love and lack of love in the core. But then people can make certain things that overcome that, or bring themselves back together, or heal a trauma. The shadow work is this concept. If people are confused or scared about shadow work just because it's called shadow work, and that like it's like, oh, is that dark witchcraft? What is that? It's facing your own shadow so that you can bring that shadow to light and it not exist anymore, because otherwise you're just compressing it down into the closet, and it's still going to exist there even if you ignore it or pretend it's not there, or believe it's not there. It's still going to exist. There are so many things that are added onto our reality besides what we believe that we are manifesting, that we're agreeing to, such as from our DNA lineage and who we've been and why we're here in Earth, and all these different things that we're also agreeing to, which makes our hologram moving forth. So there's a lot to come up with, and people shouldn't get overwhelmed with, there's so much to do, it's endless. It's more of like, there's infinite potential of expansion, and our evolution is beyond any other species in potential that has come into existence. And
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Wow.
and you just, if you're here, if you're human, hey, if you're a mechanic, and it's wonderful.
Okay, you froze for a minute there.
You see me?
You bet. Yeah, you're back. Okay, you froze for this for a little bit. It's kind of like last time, only this time you came back. Well, that's very interesting. I wonder, when you're looking at your shadow self, or you know, going over, it's almost like you do your own life review, really, and ask yourself, and some of the things that happened, or some of the things that you experienced, and you want to either transmute it, or is forgiveness involved? You know, like forgiving yourself for making mistakes, or for, wow, I wish I wouldn't have done that, or that kind of thing.
It's integral. Forgiveness is necessary. It's a lot of these words don't do the word justice, but you know, it's our best way to describe it. I'd say forgiveness is necessary if you're not able to, if you're not prepared to forgive your greatest enemy, then you're essentially signing up for endless suffering. So like the grudge area, the aspect that it's like a coal we're holding on to, it's like a fire. It actually costs us energy to hold on to it. And it's an arena, it's a game, a chessboard that we're holding on to, that is a vibrational frequency of negativity that is allowing other things to attach to it, or influence, or have it flare up or trigger at any given time, or an interaction with that person where it affects us and absolutely controls how we choose our timeline from then forth, and how, especially having to do with the interaction with that person, to where we usually cut off, or want to get away, or think they're an ass, or we, you know, make super drama that can lead us into war and endless suing battle. There's like constant stuff into that. So like forgiveness is just knowing that, oh, I'm ultimately them, and I shouldn't really want to do harm to them unless I want to harm myself. And it's, you don't, if they've done huge egregious acts that are horrible and you think you can never forgive them, that's the challenge, that's the goal. And if you're able to transmute that, it's hugely powerful. It's like making something that is like gold into itself, but you have to transform and compress the coal into the diamond. And it has to do with seeing forgiveness as another layer of consciousness, another level that if we are able to cultivate, we get to this level that's far above the minutia of the game, the endless chess games having to do with the subject. We completely rise above it, and it has no power over us, is what you're letting go of, is not condoning the person and what they're doing, not needing to do it for them ultimately as you, but mostly doing it for yourself, and then going into a state where I forgive them, I forgive myself, I rise above that. And if you're able to completely get rid of any negative feelings or sensations, or hate, or like, oh man, they just, you know, like the drama entanglement, you want to feel into the size and scale of it and start shrinking it down and breathe into yourself, cultivate love until you are able to face that person or whatever in the forgiveness yourself, that aspect of you, and you feel the pressure around the heart shrink down to nothingness, and until you are able to feel entire love while facing it, and be able to say with full conviction and not like any doubt in your mind that I truly forgive them, and I have moved to where I am beyond their ability to affect me. and I have infinite love for them. And so, because in that state, infinite love has the capacity to bring them out of that bad behavior, even through the act of detachment. Essentially, you set yourself up with a love shield anytime, because like some people don't like have grudges with people spiritually. There's stuff going on, like their ego might attach to them and like be programming these things, causing pain or dumping pain onto the person. That's why like, oh, I really hate this person. And so like you made this huge love bubble shield that anytime their other person's field tries to come in and interact with them, it like throws a lot of that back at them with the transmutation of love that like brings them to a better behavior. And so like anytime they interact with you, it just bounces back at them, and they're feeding their own healing. And you're making the world a better place because you're healing all versions of yourself, including the ones that are really hard and are really dense. And it goes into one of the states that brings you to full unity consciousness, which a lot of people's goal in unity consciousness is like having the whole aspect of existence, the whole universe, every branch of source behind you, united with you for your existence, not in any resistance to it.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, well, I think we're coming up on about an hour now, and we have a portion of that other that we started and weren't able to finish. Is there anything else that you'd like to add or to talk about before we close?
Sure. I'd say, like, people already know this is a lot of obvious stuff, like people have in their intuition. A lot of this whole event going now has to do with the election and the perceived timelines and control and what the dark can get away with. And then even if they can't get away with that, they're with the whole Trump thing. Whatever people perceive, it's like a bounty hunter that's the lesser of evils, but is being paid by Earth to do some stuff spiritually. And it could take down a big predator, or it could get taken down itself. Either way, it's going to expose a lot, and it's going to wake a lot of people up. So whatever.
That's coming forward, isn't it?
And so coming around election time, there's going to be a lot going on. A lot of things throwing crap out, and like our voting system's just so bad already. So imagine if they do the mail-in vote, and my God, it's like you're not gonna know any truth about it. But I'd say have faith that we'll be stable into the future. There's a high likelihood of everything being okay enough, though it's going to be super dramatic and chaotic, but it's going to be mostly emotional and how people react to it. And then after election, during, and there's going to be a lot of scrambling and chaos for power and some other stuff. And people are like, oh, when does all this truth come out? I mostly am seeing it's going to be coming out incrementally. And if the dark does a chess move, then that allows the light to do a chess move, and vice versa. They will react to each other. There will probably be a lot of things questioning the result of the election, and there's a likelihood that it's going to try to be stolen. So a lot of action is needed if you want to have the best possible timeline. Take care of the media at a local level. Stop protesting stupid things that Antifa and other people pay you to do. Protest the media. Take back the local media. Don't let
Sorry.
the truth, it needs to get out to a large spectrum, and in order to do that, they need to
a lot of change coming forward.
Qualified immunity, the legal aspect of like being able to sue the media, being able to vote on the media, being able to vote on the police, forming communities, town councils, a local level. All this stuff will be come back into power, and as people learn how to make their roots and their reality stable so that they can have more of the advanced creations come up off that flower.
Hmm.
Yeah, it should be good. And I don't want to give too much at the moment.
Okay, well, that was great, and we have a lot coming forward in the very near future, and it should be very interesting. And healers like yourself, I'm sure we're going to need a great deal of them, because people are going to be shocked by when they find out more of the truth of what's really been going on. The ones that have been sleeping all this time and not wanting to face what's really happening. And so they, you know, they will be needing your services, and others who are in the healing capacity. And we're not necessarily talking about the white coats. We're actually talking about the energy workers, I think, and the healers like yourself. So, although there may be a few of the other ones if they have a heart attack or something of that nature. But, the other aspect of that is the suicide rate has gone up substantially since we've been under this lockdown, so to speak. And that's very sad. Very sad.
If anyone needs help with that and suicidal thoughts, I've gone really heavy into that, and helping a lot of people deal with their pain and being able to resolve and remember why they're here again, and that 90% of the time, if you have a suicidal thought and like a culmination of emotions, it's not you, it's not supposed to happen, and it's an incursion and control and limitation of something that's threatened by the person and what they're going to become. So I have confidence that, hey, if you have suicide programs coming up, it's because you're powerful and beings are threatened by you, and that they would be dancing in the street in the rain naked if they knew what was held in their future. Also, in the guise of why the higher self allows us, and besides overwhelm and needing your help and it calling for your help, you might be engaged in something in the future where you need immunity from suicidal thoughts, which can only come from the experience. And I've had them myself, super horrible. But definitely training, definitely make or break moment can make a person into the greatest, truest version of themselves that they need in the moment, because it's a really step up to the plate or get devoured by the dark, encroaching shadow that wants to have us believe we don't want to exist anymore. And in non-existence into that does exist, people will usually have a confusion about what happens after death, and either be fantasized by the concept of forever non-existence or be afraid of it. Afterlife has multiple options, and
knowing that you never die, I think, is very powerful. You may transition, but your spirit lives on. And if people can come to that feeling or belief or whatever you want to call it, it provides a great deal of relief, I think.
There's a gorgeous heavenly place afterwards, and people call the Summerland and the in-between, or there's like the place of great white, or the place of dark, and there's all the things, and there are heaven realms, there are hell realms, there's a bunch of these playgrounds in the astral, there's the ghost aspect if we still have attachment. There is a place of non-existence for those that really want that, though I haven't really run into anyone that has so much suicidal thought they actually want to remain non-existence after they die. But there is that. It costs energy to be there, and it's not from the person, and also a thing maintaining their consciousness to want to do that. It's usually a huge overwhelm of the abuse of that suicide ability. From something that stole it, usually because they didn't earn it, and like being projected onto the person, because it usually a fear in, because they wouldn't do that if they didn't see it as worth it to keep that being out of the reality. And a lot of people that die from suicide get a life review, get remembering of who they are, all of these other lives, if they have a successful death besides the archon and crap, and surrounded by their ancestors, get a memory and like, oh shit, this is why I'm here, and then they usually go back in, despite just wanting to get out. And it's a hard, difficulty game, this place, because of this. It's so overwhelming. But you're here for a reason. You're more powerful than you've ever been told. Remember your love. Hug yourself. Go into transmuting what it wants to, the emotion, into what it wants to become. It usually wants to become resilience to live, because that's the whole goal of having it come into our spectrum, so that we never feel ever wanting to kill ourselves again, because it's very valuable second by second what you're doing here. You resolve lifetimes of stuff. Compared to other places you'd be, this realm is amazing to healing the rest of everything you care about in the multiverse, every place you've ever been, every soul family, every like drama or curse or big entanglement or war that's going on in the multiverse that brings a person to come here is getting resolved very quickly while they're here. And it's a brave thing to be here, and I love you, and I thank you for being here. And I know it's hard. I know it's so bad, the suffering. Just know you're not alone, and that if you need help, I'm here for you. And even if you can't get a hold of me, you can call upon my higher self, and you know, filtering, audio managing, crossed by your source, because you know, I'm not expecting people to like be in the trust mode, but like to where I would absolutely be able to help you if you called upon my higher self. I'm not saying that I'm the only one to do that, and you can call on other beings. Most people are in suicide aren't very spiritual though, so it's hard to get that relayed to them. But yeah, I'm here for you, and I love you greatly, and I really would be saddened to see you go, as well as anyone else that wants to kill themselves out of reality. You are needed here. Everyone here that's here has a purpose, and in the amalgamation of the timeline, if you were to see the compare and contrast of each individual that they're taken out, or in it makes a drastic difference, and it's a needed equation and puzzle. And the dark is chess moving this to try to figure out how to get powerful beings out of the reality, and that's one of the ways. And almost, it's currently in this part of the timeline, we're overloaded with suicide. Earth doesn't need anyone committing suicide now, and if they are getting it, it's absolutely an incursion, and they can reject it, and it's usually a outside entity. If you're cutting yourself, it's usually possession, or like demons are involved in some way in the anchoring of the lack that people feel, that void in them of reclaiming. Doing breath works, meditations, like a reality warping, get shit done type of thing. Take a witchy bath with Epsom salt, candles, music. Get whatever you need to go into that space where you face the thing that needs your attention, and give it love, give it wholeness, give it what it needs. Ask it, interview it. The psychological archaeology. It will go in the questioning. The answers will come, and cultivating love beyond anything will overcome that. But some people feel like the flame is gone out, and I'll usually go into something stealing energy and authority to last that chess move. So you have to reclaim a bunch of your energy and authority and do action-based things that get you going out of that state every morning that a person would wake up in, that gets them down until they've noticeably shrunk down the energy harvesting, which is mostly in the ego. Any way it enters the reality, it would be the entities. Most entities, if they anchor in it, are through the ego, and you can love that, shrink it down, and give it wholeness until and look into ego death if you need a psychedelic journey, if nothing else happens, like a mushroom trip or something to activate it, as long as you're safe. That can bring, that has been known to cure depression, though it's not going to be always a positive experience. It can usually be a teaching thing that makes you face things and then grow really strongly and then realize your greater purpose.
Alrighty then, we gotta wrap this up because I've got someone else waiting on me. And I thank you very much, Sean. It's always a pleasure, and I'm sure we might do this again sometime. And I'll be in touch with you for that. And thank you very much, audience, for listening. And I hope you enjoyed it. And thank you. And we love you, everyone. Stay strong. We can get through this. We can survive, and we can do great things.
Get that music pumping.
Exactly. Where did I'm looking for this. Oh, here it is. Okay. Once again, bye all. Love you.